The notion of you can't rest on your laurels. Just because things are going well and you're at the top of the pack, someone wants to knock you off. I'm a big believer in always like sharpening your skills and understanding why were we successful.
Welcome to Corporate Competitor Podcast, presented by Forbes Books, the show where executives share how the lessons they learned playing sports shape their leadership. With me for today's episode is Sophie Stevens, Area Vice President of Global Enterprise Sales at Cisco Systems. Sophie was born in Toronto and raised in North Carolina, and she made her mark early on the soccer field, earning a spot at one of the most storied programs in all of college sports history, the University of North Carolina women's soccer team under legendary coach Anson Dorrance. After graduating, Sophie traded the soccer pitch for the corporate arena, joining Cisco and never leaving. Over 2 decades, she's risen from associate account manager to her current leadership role. I'm so excited to learn from her today. And make sure to check out corporatecompetitorpodcast.com/notes for my favorite quotes and reflection questions to help you apply today's insights. Sophie, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Listen, I this is my first podcast, and I have to say, like, I'm really honored to not only be chatting with you, and I think you're a 12-time New York Times bestselling author,
I
but
just got
just
my 13th actually
the
this week.
congrats! I missed
I
that.
know, crazy.
And, honestly, I'm honored to be a part just of the legacy of, characters you've had on this podcast prior to me. It's really humbling. So thank you for having me.
Well, are you kidding me? The legacy continues. We're excited to talk. I love what you've achieved both on the field and off, and we're going to talk about it. But one of the things we talk a lot about on this podcast is culture, right? And Cisco, I want to start business first. We're going to go sports heavy, but Cisco's been ranked the top 5 on the Fortune 100 best companies to work for list for what feels like decades, right? I mean, and that's no small feat. And from your perspective as an executive, what's one aspect of the culture of Cisco that you think sets the company apart, allowing you all to earn that kind of consistent recognition?
Yeah. So I've been here, it'll be 20 years in February. It's the only place I know. I joined right outside of graduating from Carolina, and I'll, share how I ended up at Cisco because it was not part of my plan, but I've obviously never looked back. So Cisco's mission statement is to power an inclusive future for all. And it's one thing to actually have words on paper, but to actually live it is very different. And Cisco lives it. It's very much a collaborative, inclusive culture. And when I first joined, as the ripe old age of 21 and
Ancient.
ancient, yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting like we have this Cisco Sales Associate program. It's a early in career kind of program that Cisco invests in. And I was sitting at the table, and the leader of the team at the time was saying, we have an open door policy. Don't hesitate. Like, if you need help, you can call all the way at the time to John Chambers, who was the CEO. You can call anyone. It's an open door policy. Everyone wants you to be successful here, because if you're successful, the company's successful, and our customers, most importantly, is this, we put at the center of all we do, are successful. And I would say just really having that open, honest, collaborative culture uh, is one of the main reasons we're differentiated in those top places to work. We also have a tremendous give back culture. Cisco gives you
Mm.
time every year to give back to the community. We pride ourselves in that. And, there's a number of other things like employee resource groups and the encouragement really to diversify your skill set. So when you say, hey, I want to go for a new job, there's been 0 times in my career where my leader at the time has said, "No, like, I like you and I love your body of work and you need to stay doing this." It's very much a supportive culture to go on and do the next thing to diversify the skill set. So, those are just a few of the reasons why I love it here. It really comes down to the people. that help us live out our mission statement every day.
You talked openly, right there at the beginning about the open door policy and this idea that if you've got a challenge, reach in because we're here to solve it. Is there a story of an early interaction where you maybe kinda weren't sure, was it really an open door policy? Do they really if I really walk in on some
Yeah.
executive and ask with it and then and you were pleasantly surprised and maybe even came out of it with a really great solution?
Yeah, I mean, this one I'm super passionate about. So I have 4 daughters, and I've had all my girls, my Cisco kids, have all been born and raised during my career at Cisco. And what was interesting is the first time I went on maternity leave, uh, I came back, I had 9 weeks of leave, which
Mm,
in this day and age is, uh, not common, especially in the tech industry. And
mhm.
so, I had 12 I was kinda 9 weeks paid, 12 weeks unpaid with Family Medical Leave Act, but, very much a go-getter, wanted to stay in motion and come back to work, but I felt at the time, 1, I don't think I was prepared as an employee to come back. I wasn't sleeping well, it was my first child, and so I all the new parents and moms listening probably can resonate with what I'm describing, but you're not sleeping. You're not yourself. It took you 40 weeks to grow this human, and then in 9 weeks, you're expected to bounce back. And so I share the background of that because I came back and I actually called our CHRO at the time, Fran Katsudis, and I had a relationship with her just very briefly because she served as an executive sponsor on one of the accounts I supported. And I called her and said, listen, like Cisco's a great place to work. But 9 to 12 weeks off for new parents is not industry standard, especially in tech, and you want to really create a environment where women want to come back to work, but they need to be ready, not only physically but mentally. And so I worked with her, just through, the maternity leave program to really look at what it looks like for someone in sales versus a different persona or job function within Cisco. What does it look like to return to work, and how do we make it more fair and equitable and industry standard? And it wasn't just for the women, um, or um, the primary person delivering the baby. I had this notion of the traditional job roles have changed significantly where women might be the primary contributor at home and the man might stay at home. And so, what are we doing for paternity benefits as well to ensure that we're also providing equal kind of time off for someone
Mm.
that might be the primary caregiver at home that's not the birth mother?
I love it, I love it. So, few people stay at one company long enough to really to watch its evolution firsthand, right? I mean, you've already made point that you've been there 20 years and hired as an associate account manager. Like, I was there anything below associate account manager that you could have? No, you got it. You came in literally,
At the
uh,
bottom.
at the bottom, and, today you're a VP, right? What is leading through Cisco's transformation? Because the company has changed dramatically then, the industry has changed, what the world needs from Cisco has changed over the last 20 years. What's it taught you about the importance of staying relevant?
It's been an interesting journey for me professionally. One, I stumbled into this opportunity, and, I'll tell you just a brief story. So, I played soccer at Carolina, and I know we're gonna get to that, but we were Nike sponsored at Carolina, and we had a team rep that would travel with us to, like, try on gear and let us give feedback to Nike, and we got to do some really cool stuff with Nike as a result of that. So I was a journalism and mass communication major at Carolina. I had a focus in sports marketing, and I thought, wow, this would be like a really great path to go on. That's where my passion is. I'm a competitor at heart, and I couldn't get a job. Like no one would hire me. And I had internships. I called Adidas, Nike, Fila, like the list goes on. I called everyone and no one would hire me. I finally got a offer to do a sports marketing gig in New York City, but they offered me $17,000 a year. And I'm like, Like, that's below the poverty line. That's like a cup of coffee and a sandwich this week. So, like, no, thank you. So, my mom was in tech and my dad was in tech. And my mom said, you ought to look at Cisco. It's a great company. They have this early in career program. Go do that and get the experience you're looking for. And then, go off to Nike. Well, obviously, that's not the path I took. And I've been at Cisco now 20 years. But I share that story because coming into tech was not at all where I thought my life would be.
You hadn't done any prep for that, right? I mean, this wasn't like you didn't take prep. There was no, computer science classes that
0. I
were
was,
right,
journalism major and math.
right.
Just,
Trust me, I know. We take journalism so we don't have to take math. I get it. Yeah.
exactly.
Right.
Yeah. What can
Yeah.
I do to place out of all the math courses?
Yeah.
So, I stumbled into technology. I mean, I said a router in my interview. Like, I didn't even know what it was. I didn't know what a
Router, not router?
yeah. I didn't know what a switch was. My mom was like, "We have a cutover," and, she was at Nortel, who is no longer in business, but I literally was like, "You gotta go into an office to turn on a light switch?" Like, and mind-boggling, no idea what anything Cisco did. So, you asked me the question, but I think it's important to have the context on my background because I stumbled into it, and so coming in, especially as a young female in tech, it was very intimidating. And
Mm.
so, but like I said, Cisco's mission statement has lived. Like, I always felt included. I felt like my voice was heard, that I could confidently show up at a table and voice an opinion without kind of being turned away or someone else take credit for my ideas. And so, working at Cisco for 20 years, staying relevant and kind of going through the journey with Cisco, honestly, it's like the tale of two worlds. Really can be really intimidating and scary to extremely exciting and tip of the spear kinda excitement, and we're living that right now with AI. I mean, I don't know how many minutes we're into this, but it took us that long to say AI, and
AI, I know, exactly.
it's just been really interesting, and so it's both sides, and we aren't perfect, we don't know everything, no one does, and we're all learning this and just having this, like, uh, desire to constantly learn, but more importantly, be curious.
When you look at how Cisco has pivoted, what's impressed you the most? Has there been a little bit of a pivot that one of the pivots, maybe it is AI, where suddenly you realize, boy, you take what I was selling, those routers I was selling way back then, and you look at what you're looking at today. Um, was there a moment where you realized, boy, this company really, because there are a lot of companies that lose their relevance. I mean, IBM did, right, for so many years, and that lose their relevance because they just don't do it. They don't pivot fast enough.
Yeah. It's, so I think we're living through it right now. And just
The
this
moment that
one,
you're most proud of.
yeah, we're living through, and I'll say over the last 18 months, and there's kind of a number of topics in this one, but the last 18 months, Chuck Robbins, Cisco's chair and CEO, he appointed a new chief product officer. In the history of Cisco, we've not had a chief product officer, and
Mm,
G2 Patel has been appointed. And why that is important for us is it's completely changed the way we go to market with our customers, and it's a differentiator for us. It's really a
mm,
platform play. And so historically, Cisco's been siloed across kind of business entities, and we've showed up as disparate companies versus one.
mm,
And so over the last kind of, 12 to 18 months, we've gone through this internal reorganization to align to how our customers want to consume from us.
mhm,
And so why that's important is when you think about our core industry, which started in networking, routing and switching and wireless, we have completely evolved. I mean, Cisco is known for our acquisition strategy and how quickly we acquire and fold in complementary products into our portfolio to make us a better platform for our customers. But we didn't always go to market that way. And so
mhm,
the shift is, and we're going to talk a little bit about momentum, but the shift we are feeling and our customers are feeling, they are buying into our strategy. And what this is doing is absolutely setting a foundation for us for the future of AI. Infrastructure is critically important to how AI is going to exist for our customers and how they are going to deploy it, not only at
Mm,
scale within their enterprise, but beyond, and how they are gonna serve their customers. And so, I think when you think about just the momentum that we have right now and the shift and kind of this formational opportunity, I feel like in my last 20 years at Cisco, this is probably one of the most exciting moments for us.
I love it. I mean, it's exciting that 20 years in, you can still be excited. That's awesome. So as I said, we talked a little about Cisco, but I want to dig in because I love the fact that you had the opportunity to play soccer at North Carolina, one of the literally historic programs in all of sports. Like, forget it doesn't matter what you're studying. If you want to look at greatness, you got to study North Carolina women's soccer, right? 2003, your team went undefeated, 27-0, ended up beating Connecticut 6-0 in the national championship. And you've said in some things that I've read that it was one of your greatest sports thrills. Is there a specific moment from that day that you still think about? Is there something from that when you would say the thrill, was the thrill just the end, getting the championship? Was it what was it that made it so?
As I'm prepping for our conversation today, just thinking back on the moment, what was so unique about that season was some of the things that you mentioned was, we were 27-0 that entire season, no losses. And then the combined score during the NCAA tournament, we had scored 32 goals and not was never scored against.
It
That
was 32-0. It was your what
was
was the
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 culmination
score
of all
differential.
the
Right, oh, yeah, no, of
yeah,
all those games, yeah.
all the
That's
NCAA games.
that's
So,
crazy.
so that was really, really cool.
That defines dominance is
Yeah.
what that does.
And then
Yes.
to take out the championship game, 6-0 against UConn, that season, I know Tim Carruthers, who, writes
Yep.
and is you
He and
probably
I were at Sports Illustrated together.
yeah, so you all know each other, and he actually wrote a book about that season and that team specifically. It's one of the most winningest sports teams in the history, and so the thrill to me was the season, but you don't have that perspective until you've completed it. And the culmination of winning at a 6-0 in a national championship game and being, undefeated as well as no one scores on you, I mean, that was phenomenal, and so I still look back and there's pictures of that season and you just relive that moment. It was actually held locally in North Carolina at our, in
Oh,
Cary, so it was a little bit of a home team advantage, but that to me was just the culmination of the success of that whole season was the thrill.
you know, one of the things I'd love to ask you about when you're on a run like that, sometimes teams get caught up in fear of losing the streak. Like, boy, we're undefeated. I mean, I've talked to lots of teams that have had these amazing runs through different sports, different seasons. And then at a certain stage, the pressure starts to build not to lose the streak. Did you did you ever feel that, or do you think uh, that kind of ever was part of the mindset that you were battling?
Yeah, I think towards the end, like, we're going back a while now, I'm trying to, like, go through the cobwebs of them, but I have to imagine, like, at some point in the season, we had this, like, "Holy smokes" moment. We've been undefeated, we're having an amazing season, and yes, I think there's a level of pressure to live up to this, but we also know, as resilient as we are, and I'll talk a little bit about Anson's core values, but resilience is one of those. Okay, so if we lost and or we went, someone got a goal on us during the NCAA tournament, so what? The end result was the national championship win, and so I think just always keeping what is core and what the goal is at front and center for these kind of runs is most important.
Well, it was I mean, what an incredible run, and, I love it. So let's talk about Anson. I mean, I'll share with our listeners, I mean, Anson Dorrance is one of my favorite people, that I've ever had a chance to work with, learn from, interview. He's a big part of the book that I wrote on building high-performing teams, and he talked to me a lot about these core values. So, he's not just a legend. 47 seasons, he won 21 championships. Crazy, right? Um, 934 victories. You just forget it, right? Tell me a good Anson Dorrance story.
Oh my gosh. There's
And
a
I bet you
lot.
have buckets of them, but pick one that will allow the listeners to understand what an extraordinary human he was to be in relationship with.
I mean, now that everyone listening knows his background and just the great kind of coach and person he is, maybe I can tell two. So the first story I want to share is when I was getting recruited to play at Carolina. I was on my recruiting visit and I was sitting across from Anson. And this ties back to a story that Bernie mentioned on one of your previous podcasts that I want to bring together here. But um, I was sitting across from him during my recruiting visit, and he says, "Hey, Sophie, we'd love to have you at Carolina. You have a ton of potential." And I'm like, however old I am, 16 at the time. And I'm like, "Yes, potential. That's great." And he looks at me and goes, "Sophie, you know what my definition of potential is?" I go, "No, Anson, I don't." He goes, "It means you ain't worth it yet." And I love that because no, when you think about potential, a word, you're like, "Oh, that's great." Like, there's an opportunity, there's hope there. And I think Bernie on your one of your most recent podcasts about momentum was talking
Yeah.
about, Harry Kramer and how he defined it as leaders transform potential into performance. I mean, how great is that? And just tying those 2 together because it's true. Potential is worth nothing until you deliver a result. And, so during my recruiting visit, I still tell that story because my whole career playing soccer, I was the top of the pile, winning, state titles, winning, All-American all these things, and then you get to Carolina, it's like, well, you're here because of that, but you're starting over. And so that was just a really interesting kind of Anson.
How about that as a recruiting pitch though,
Oh my
right? Yeah. Like,
I was like,
here
"Where
you
do I
are.
sign? I'm gonna prove
What
myself."
see, but that's the beauty of what Anson Dorrance looked for, right? He looked for young people who would say exactly that. Because, there's the other flip side, which is, what, did that guy just say I'm not worth,
Yeah,
I mean, really? Is that what he just said?
yeah, and sorry to say
Um,
that on the podcast, but
oh
it's
no, it's
part of the
okay.
definition.
But yeah, it's Anson.
Yeah.
And but that idea of that you had yet you great potential, and as you said, probably you puff out a little bit, right? Awesome potential, and then he breaks you down a little to see, are you going to now sign or not?
Bingo. The other thing that I think is uniquely different about Anson, and he talks about kind of these 3 epiphanies, a couple of them I'll talk about, and I know it's probably worth us chatting more about the competitive cauldron, but the cauldron is an Anson story that's definitely worth talking about, and I'd like to share a little bit how I've instilled that within my own organization, but the cauldron and then the other one is really around living this principle-centered life. And we had to memorize kind of our core values. We had to read, and he talks a bit about.
One per year of your. Yeah, I was there one day, and he grabbed a sophomore and said, "Come in here. What's this year's
Yeah.
And she was freaked out, like, who am I talking in front of? Who is this guy? Why is he taking notes? And yeah, but go ahead. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
so it's, we'll talk about the cauldron and, what Anson used to say and what was mind-blowing to me coming in is that you can't improve what you can't measure, and people do what you inspect, not what you expect. And so he had kind of 28 things he would measure us on, and you'd have to have peer review on it. So I remember some of the first practices, we'd be out on the field. We had uh ton of managers,
Statisticians.
statisticians, and uh, analysts, right? And you would do an activity, whatever that drill was, and one of them would be clearing a ball with your right foot, heading a ball. How far could you clear? And I'd say, I think that's like a B, and they'd be like, that's like a C, right? And so you had to mutually agree on like where did you land on that? And you'd have to, after that drill, go and tell one of the managers, like, this is what I got, this is what they got. And we did that across 28 drills. And that would be posted on
Right after practice.
right after practice. They would post it. And Nancy would always say, if you're not in my top, 10, 11 players, you're not getting playing time. You got to work your way up. And so it created this culture not only of accountability, but
Mm,
this competitive fire in all of us. We're athletes
mhm.
playing at a very high level. And so kind of created this fire in your belly. But it wasn't, it was interesting how Anson led. It didn't create competition negatively. It was like, oh my gosh, she's number
How
one.
so how did he do that? That's one of the great questions people have asked me when I've talked about the cauldron
Yeah.
before, is that in most environments, if you start measuring people, putting it up on the board and saying, "You're 10th, you're 28, or you're the 30th player on our team,"
Yeah.
um, you know, there's a lot of, like, going home and calling your mom and say or mom and dad and saying, "Boy, I'm number 30. I think maybe this is not my place."
Yeah.
So how did he keep that from becoming a negative experience?
There's a couple of things, right? I do think there's moments of like, oh man, this stinks. But I do just given how competitive every single person is, it wasn't and it's kind of weird to say this, but it's not like Anson would stand up there and say, "Well, this person's doing better than this person," and, like, comparing. Like, you have children, you know that. You don't compare them. They're uniquely
Oh,
special
my
and
children believe I do,
yeah.
but that's okay. Yeah.
So, I would say it created a culture of accountability because this wasn't Anson. Like, data it's not objective. Like, it is what it is. And so there was no debating it. Not only did you agree on it, but the person and your partner also agreed on it, and that was the number. And so using data to drive the decisions on where everyone landed, I would say that it doesn't create room for subjectivity. And so as a result of that, it created this idea of like, okay, so I see this person in the top 10. What are they doing differently that I'm not doing? And a lot of it has to do with the work they're putting in off the field and how before practice and after practice and how are they focused? Like what drills do they do? What are they doing in the weight room, right? It's all those after hours things that come because by
Mhm.
the time you're playing at Carolina, everyone's top talent, right? You've kind of got
Right.
that genetic DNA of you're a really good athlete, but it's the extras that go into it. And so I think it creates this idea of, okay, how do I learn from that player? What are they doing differently? And it creates this opportunity for greatness. It just up levels everyone in the team, but also in the organization.
So, you wanted to share how you have translated some of that into the corporate world, and I'd love to hear it.
Yeah. So the Cauldron's a stack rank based on a number of metrics, and that worked for soccer. And we posted it publicly, and anyone, and actually at Carolina, that were to walk by or any visitor would see that public posting. And so when I came into this role 2.5 years ago, one of the things that I thought would be really interesting to roll out was the competitive cauldron internal to my sales organization. And, I will tell you that's how I kicked it off is I had Anson present, his 3 epiphanies and one of them being the cauldron to level set how it works, why it works. And so my team had a sense of like, this wasn't Sophie just like her competitive nature coming up with something that made sense for the organization, that it was rooted in a legacy of a program and that it worked.
Of 21 national championships.
Right. Minor,
Right.
minor detail. So I rolled it out in my organization. And one of the things that I look for as a leader is obviously we're driven by growing the business year on year. But there are a number of ways you can do that. And so it's really important to me as a leader is driving not only growth, but is it balanced and is it predictable? That's really important, especially for our shareholders and the organization I lead. And so we rolled out the cauldron for not only all of the individual account managers on my team, but within my org, I have groups of teams that lead different parts of my business. And so it created this healthy competition internally. And there were metrics. What's really important about this is they had needed to be balanced. Same with soccer, right? Like if they scored 7 goals, but they never passed a fitness test and couldn't shoot the side of a barn with their left foot, they're probably not the best player to put on the field. So the same is true in business as we came up with really the metrics that matter, right? What are the really hard metrics that we need to measure: growing our annual software business, our
Were there some surprising metrics that matter when you came up with them like that, or did everybody was it really obvious?
It was relatively obvious. There was some subjective measurements we also put in there, some of the softer metrics, like we use MedPick as a part of our sales process, and what we started to find was, uh, the teams that actually took that seriously as a part of a sales methodology, we actually found they had quicker times to closure, right? They understood the paper process, they understood the metrics that mattered to they understood the decision criteria, and so when we started to look at it more broadly, we started to notice that time to deal closure and deal size was actually quicker time to closure and bigger deal size as a result of using the MedPIC scorecard and the framework. So, I rolled it out across the organization. We would hand out awards, our whole ritual and recognition system, every
Did you put it up on was it literally publicly
it was
posted?
publicly posted. And I actually presented it, and it actually took it gained momentum within Cisco and the broader sales organization, and it's kind of taken on a life of its own now, but it started with the competitive cauldron.
Research shows that 80% of us believe we have a book within us, but the number of people who follow through and do the work to create that book is far, far less. The reason is that the process can seem so overwhelming. And that is why I have partnered with Forbes Books to make the process easier for those of you who listen to this podcast and believe you have a story in you. So if you're ready to turn your leadership experience into your legacy, start your journey with us today at Forbes Books. Visit forbesbooks.com/Don to get started. Wow. So Anson and I had the chance to do a couple of speaking engagements in Orlando together a couple of years ago, and he talked about the three epiphanies. And so I love. I mean, competitive cauldron is one.
Yep.
Do you mind sharing a little bit more and maybe some of what you learned from him?
Yeah. So the 3 were, the cauldron, like, recording everything, the second
And
being
that
that
people want to be. They don't want to be at the bottom. If you've got the right people, nobody wants to see their name at the bottom.
bingo. The other thing, is the principle-centered life, like the core values, and he's got a number of them. It's interesting because when we presented, or when I had him present to my, team, he talked about being tough, being disciplined, focused, relentless, positivity, right? All of these things, which are very much part of my core principles today. And so, that what he would do is he would tie either books or quotes, generally quotes from books, to the core principles. And he said, if you learn these and you memorize them and recite them, like it changes like the cerebral fabric of your brain. Like you become what you start to believe, right? And so he would measure us on them, but more importantly, we would do peer review on them. So is Sophie showing up living these 12 principles? Right? And then there was like the peers would rank you.
And you don't know how they're you don't know who's ranking you how, but you see the results based upon what your peers are seeing from you. And
Right. And he
it
had a
could sometimes be a wake-up call, right? You think you're here and they think you're here, and suddenly you go, "Whoa, what am I missing?"
Well, how great is this too? Because it very much translates to all of our everyday lives. And we always talk about these blind spots that we may have. And if you don't do these sort of peer reviews, not just having a leader review you, but the peer reviews, like, hey, these are the 3 things that are most important. Does Sophie show up this way? Right?
Yeah.
Was really important. And then his third kind of epiphany was just around this notion of the what versus the why, and he called it getting your personal narrative to the truth. And so what action is needed to get to the why? And so he tells stories about that a lot, but one of the things he would share, and I might not get this perfect, but he basically said average players want to be left alone, good players want to be coached, and great players want the truth because objective data is the truth. And so he talks about that, and I believe that as not only a leader within Cisco now, but I know the leaders on my team, they have this, like, desire, an unsatiable desire to, like, get feedback.
So you instilled or you installed the competitive cauldron into your sales organization. How did it what was the result?
It was interesting to see it take form. At first, I think when you think about the how Anson defined average players, good players, and great players, that very much showed up in the cauldron. Some people, individuals, oh my gosh, now I'm exposed. You have people that are coasting. And listen, that's for my org that's listening, that's natural. You're not going to have A players on every single team that live every core principle and behavior and always want feedback and want to be on display. So that's very normal to have this balance across the organization. But it was really interesting to me not only to see how people reacted, but what they did and differently as a result of being on display. There was some interesting things around collaboration on, wow, this person's at the top of the list. What are they doing? It's balanced across their business. What are they doing? How do they bring their team in? How do they hold others accountable? How do they have the micro moments with their team? And I think you talk a little bit about this in your book, like this sparks. Like, how do you continue to highlight these micro moments where we're having success? And as a result, the whole business started to gain momentum.
Mm.
And so we've taken what could have been seen as a negative, competitive kind of cauldron, and we use it as an opportunity to turn it into a bigger outcome that was greater than just that individual team, but the whole org. And I'll tell you, as a result, we came out as kind of the number one team in our business this year,
Did you
double
really?
digit growth, and yeah. And so what you do is having an impact in the outcome, and that's really important.
That is so good. So I gotta ask you back to Carolina days.
Yeah.
The first time you see your name on that wall, right? The list of players, um, what did that feel like first? I mean, that because you probably never first off, you'd always been first probably among everywhere else that you'd played, and suddenly there's a lot of talent around you. You're not I'm gonna guess you weren't at the top of the stack rank early. What was it like the first time you saw your name and you go, "Oh, crap," or what did you say?
It's a gut punch.
Yeah?
And here's why, like, I came to Carolina, and while I was recruited, I knew that playing time was gonna be hard to earn, and I played with the likes of Heather O'Reilly and Catherine Reddick and, Lindsay Tarpley, all these people that were on the national team, and, like, I came here, I've been number 1, I was never a bench player my whole career, and then I got to Carolina, and I got my butt on the bench trying to figure out how I'm gonna earn some playing time, and, so the first time you see yourself and you're not on the top of the list, that's painful, especially for really competitive people. And so I think it lights a different sort of fire that maybe I never had before on how I showed up. I mean, there were plenty of Anson runs fitness tests. I don't think he does it as much as he used to anymore, but there are girls puking on the side of the field
Oh, I
after
know. He
fitness
talked about the
tests. And
buckets. Yeah.
yeah, and 1 down, 10 to go, 2 down, 9 to go, like, and you're thinking, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna," but the competitive cauldron creates this, like, work ethic, the grit, the determination to maybe do things differently than you ordinarily have, like, what got you there won't get you there. What got you here won't get you there, and, that was very much true.
What did you do to go get better? Like, what can I learn from you about how if I see myself or I hear or I understand that I'm not where I wanna be, how did you double down as a young woman, right, on this team to go get better? What'd you do?
Yeah, I think when everything's going really well, which it was prior to me going to Carolina, it's rare to pause and say what needs to be done differently. You just keep going because whatever you're doing is working. So when you see yourself at the bottom of the list, you have to take a moment to pause and reflect. I'm a big reflector on, okay, what's been going well and what needs to be done differently. And so as a part of that process and seeing yourself at the bottom of the list, you have to go back to basics. say, all right, what do I need to do? Let's not overcomplicate this or over rotate, but sitting down and defining, and I still do this to this day, is like, all right, we got off course here. I just sent my leader a summary of the past fiscal year. And while we were top of the heap, there were still things that didn't go that well that we need to do differently and double down on. And I think the same is true for my soccer career at Carolina. Is when you're at the bottom of the list, you got to go back to basics. What does it mean to get to the top of the list in the different 28 categories? And you can't put all 28 up at one time because you'll become overwhelmed. We have to
Mhm.
take small steps, incremental steps every day to be like, all right, I'm going to bench press more than I did last week. And here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to get a little bit faster. And this is what I'm going to do. And you got to pick 2 or 3 things that you're really going to go after. And then you start to build speed and momentum on the small little steps you started to take.
Carolina has a really unique approach. Anson Dorrance took a unique approach to how to celebrate big championship moments. Um, would you share that with the listeners? You and I talked about a little bit about, you know, he it's one thing to kind of give out plaques and trophies and rings. He has a unique approach, and I'd love for people to understand it.
Anson is a phenomenal leader, as not evidenced only by his track record of success and the teams he's built out, as well as the players, but he has an ability to inspire, and he's an amazing storyteller. And one of the things he would do every national championship season, and when we were in the NCAA tournament, we'd get to a point in the tournament where he would dismiss the seniors at the end of kind of, before we went on the field, we're sitting in the locker room, he would dismiss the seniors and he'd have roses. He'd have 4 roses, and 3 roses would represent their prior year's national championships, if they had won or if they had not. And then the 4th rose represented the intention for the senior year, which is we wanna work as a team to send our seniors out on a high, winning a national championship.
Mm.
And he'd pick an individual, um, as senior that year, and he would write them a letter. And he would read the letter to the team in the room.
To the juniors,
And
sophomores, and freshmen.
yeah, freshman, sophomore, junior, all the years I was in the NCAA tournament, this would happen. And, I'll tell you what that did for the team. Not only, he talks all the time about coaching women and coaching men and very different DNA and
'Cause
how you do
he
that.
coached both at one stage.
He did.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's this camaraderie amongst the women on the team, but you pull on the heartstrings of the team and you're like, "Yeah, I wanna send this person out on top." Like, you come out, you're, like, busting through the door ready to play for those seniors because all the things he says is we play our whole lives for this very moment, and this is
Mm.
their last opportunity to show up as seniors. We wanna get them to the next game, to get them to the next game, to the final, and so
And he did this before every game.
and during the NCAA tournament,
Right.
correct. Yeah.
Yeah. What a motivational moment. But then at the end, one of the things he shared with me was that he gave out championship roses, right? To that he would give the roses to and part of that was that he knew the roses would at some stage they would wilt, right? They would no longer be as pretty or as attractive or as which means you got to go back next year and earn a new rose, right? You got to go do what there's just so much genius in everything that he does, but that idea, can you can you play through any of that to because obviously in a sales organization you don't have seniors, you don't have sophomores.
Yeah.
How do you take some of that you learned from him and navigate it into the way that you lead in your spot today?
The notion of you can't rest on your laurels. And just because things are going well and you're at the top of the pack, someone wants to knock you off. And I knew that by living my days at Carolina. Like, we were always number 1. It's why people don't like the Patriots and the Yankee, right? Like, they seem to always just continue to be number 1. And so, I'm a big believer in always, like, sharpening your skills and understanding why were we successful? And we have collective discussions as a group, like, what are the things that made us successful this prior year? And you look at the metrics because those exist and it's not objective, I mean, it is objective, it's not subjective, and what do we need to do differently? These are core areas for growth for Cisco, and what do we need to do differently? We need to iterate. We can't continue to do what we've always done, and that's how you have to continue to transform yourselves and your organization. And then you gotta focus and double down on that. And so, we're coming off our fiscal year that closed at the end of July. We were number 1 of 4 kind of businesses, within Cisco, and I asked my team, "We're not having a great start." And, my business particularly, and a lot of why, what do we need to do differently, right? Or are we doing all the right things? We just are having a lull in the business, right? And so just having a real understanding, because as a leader of the pack is how the expression I say, is, uh, speed of the leader, speed of the pack.
Mm. I love one of the things I love about that answer is you at one stage you're talking about how you're reflecting on bad quarter, bad start of the year, what's wrong, what do we got to do? Kind of doing that after action report, right? If we use a military example, is that's common when things aren't going well, right? It's common. What are we doing wrong? What could we do differently? But early in the answer, you talked about doing it after a great year, right? We were successful, we were the and yet, what did we leave on the table? What was still out there on the field that we could have done? The idea that you do those both in moments of success where most people don't, and failure, right? Most people don't take the time to truly do the deep assessment in moments of victory, right? It's like, hey, we won. That's great. Let's go.
Yeah, I think there's always an opportunity to do things better, and that's how we up level, not only amongst our team and our peers, but also against the competition. There's
Mhm.
always room to improve.
So one of the questions that we've asked several guests, you've used my favorite word several times, explore the concept of momentum. Of most of us who love sports can see, we can feel momentum in events, right? You can, um, but I think it's true in business too. There are windows of time when when it feels like it's flowing for you, right? Where it's good. Um, Sometimes you have a moment that propels you, uh, and sometimes the moment belongs to your opponent, right? And first, I'm going to guess because you've used the word so often, you do believe in momentum.
1,000%.
1,000%. I like that. That's a good number. And if so, have you ever had a moment where an event or a choice or a decision has shifted the momentum in your business?
Working towards these 3 main pillars and coming from the top down has been really important, and why I share that is, this notion of them being all in
Mhm.
and having them, um, like, they are leading the way they are describing, right, with these 3 core pillars. And so, when we see the like, as a result of Chuck changing our product strategy and our organizational strategy, outlining these 3 pillars and then living them, we have completely changed the way in which our teams are inspired around Cisco's product strategy moving forward. It wasn't always this way. And so the fact that it came top down, I think you have every leader within Cisco now evangelizing it and having the same talk track around Cisco One and our message. We all have to have the same vernacular when we're in front of our customers and in front of our teams, and almost this like ruthless standardization around that, because then we're all aligned. Definition of a team is a shared goal. I strongly believe that. And so when you have that from the top down, it it's starting to create momentum, and we're having these micro moments of momentum within Cisco right now, where historically we might not win a certain product portfolio. We might have lost because of some lack of innovation. But what we're doing now is we're having like these micro moments of success. And so highlighting those, I think, is really important because
Leader
I'll have teams,
communications. Right.
yeah, I'll have teams say, well, like, we're not winning in that product category. I'm like, well, we are. Did you hear about this? Go talk to that team, right? And so just kind of celebrating the micro moments of success widely. I have a Teams room that we use and we celebrate the successes, but we also talk about the losses because there's a lot of opportunity to learn from those. And so it's the culmination of all of those things right now that is creating this momentum within Cisco.
Love it. Thank you very much. You're my momentum and inspiration for the day. It's awesome.
Good.
So I want to one thing that a lot of folks are facing these days, a real challenge, is turnover, right? And I know we talked about culture, we talked about the about best places to work and all the other good things, but still, turnover is real and people switching jobs more freely than ever. It feels like. And I'm talking to a 20-year vet, so I probably you may not be the best person to ask, but what have you found to be most effective as a leader in keeping your team engaged and reducing that churn? What are some of the ways? What's a lesson I can learn from you on how to keep you know people engaged and staying?
One of the things I really believe in, and Lencioni said this, is way into buy-in. And as I ask a lot of questions of my team, I want their feedback. By no means am I the smartest person in the room. I mean, great leaders surround themselves with really smart leaders, right? It makes their jobs a heck of a lot easier. And so I always ask my team for input. I think it's really important that their voices are heard. And every year, in my third year being into this role, I hold like a leadership summit. And it's every single leader that's not only in my direct reporting chain, but in the adjacent reporting chain that supports the success of our business, which might be our customer experience team and services team. And so this whole notion of way into buy-in is we get everyone together. It's not just my SLT, but it's every person that impacts our business that's in a leadership position. And I ask them for feedback. What are we doing well? Where are we going to be focused this year? What do you think we need to do differently? And I ask them to pick things that we can impact. There are a lot of times people raise hands like, I don't like Cisco's comp strategy. Cool. Like, I can't
I
really
can't
change
fix
that.
that.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's come up with ideas that we can have a meaningful impact, most importantly, with our customers at the center of that discussion and our partners on our route to market and for our teams. And so when I think about churn and attrition, I actually don't have a ton in my business. I don't think Cisco has a ton right now, honestly, just based on the momentum we're having. You like how I did that phrase?
You're so sly. This is good.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah.
have to give you an NIL
No, I
deal
just
before it's like
it's actually one of my favorite words. I used it a lot because I truly believe in kind of these micro moments that spark, the momentum in the business. But, um, just around attrition and churn, listen, when people tell me they wanna leave Cisco, I will never beg a person to stay. It's kind of like being in a relationship. I don't want it to be in a relationship with someone who doesn't wanna be in a relationship with me. And so I will be curious, I will ask the why, I will seek to understand their position, but I'm not gonna beg them to stay. And, I will 100% support whatever it is they wanna do. I'm a big believer, and sometimes you gotta fail. Not all of those people fail, sometimes they're successful elsewhere, and you know when those are gonna happen. But when I think about churn and attrition, and how do I just create followership in a culture is my communication style, very direct, honest, and empathetic. I'm super competitive, and so what I do know is my team loves that I get in the boat with them to win. The challenge for me is scale now because I wanna win every deal. My expectation, honestly, is Cisco's gonna win, so when we lose, I'm really disappointed. When I win, it's like a small high five because the expectation is we were gonna
we
win
were
this.
gonna do that, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
we
really,
wanted to
honestly.
win. We were
Sorry,
gonna win.
don't get too excited. Don't get
Yeah.
it right. Yeah.
So I think those 2 things coupled with my attitude and gratitude practice, I am honestly very thankful for the team that helps us be successful. This is a team sport. And so I just make sure I'm really intentional in those few things around my leadership. And when the technology is there and we have the innovation engine at Cisco, it makes it a lot easier to keep people here. And that's where we're at right now.
Boy, momentum. You got it. Sophie Stevens, thank you so much for the time today. Thanks for being a corporate competitor with us. This is I knew the word compete would resonate with you, and just in everything that I read, and it completely showed up over this window of time. I'm grateful, 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 and I appreciate you.
Yeah. Well, Don, this was an exciting opportunity and never done a podcast before. So appreciate the opportunity to share a little small sliver of my journey and the impact of just my career at Carolina and how it translates into my leadership style within Cisco. So thank you for the time.
Wow. I mean, like, that was fantastic. She was just, there was wisdom nugget after nugget. I feel like I was just given a great gift today. And so it was just amazing. But I want to I want to start out by shouting out Sharon Pooley, a client executive at Cisco who actually reached out through LinkedIn with this guest suggestion. Thank you, Sharon, for giving us this opportunity in connecting us with Sophie and knowing what great content she would deliver for us. And by the way, for the rest of you, if you've got a guest suggestion, hit LinkedIn, hit YouTube, put it in the comments section. We are looking for we're always looking for great guests like this one. That was for sure. But I want to give you three great takeaways from today. The first is I loved her whole discussion about Anson Dorrance's competitive cauldron, right? This entire idea that you can't improve what you can't measure, and how measurement doesn't it needs to be something that is objective. So you have to come to agreement about what the numbers are, but then it needs to be posted, right? People have to know where they stand. In many ways, it's kind of like a constant 360 review. Like you constantly know what's going on, and then there's that, the idea. She said even among the core values in the organization, how they are, how others actually rate you against the core values. I love that idea that there's this constant feedback, and how valuable feedback is, and how Anson taught it to her, but how she took that really powerful lesson and turned it into something meaningful at Cisco, right? One of the world's great companies, one of the world's largest companies, started adopting some of these amazing habits because of what he taught. So, how do you build a competitive cauldron environment? How do you create a measurement tool that your team can know exactly where they stand? Uber valuable. The second great takeaway was this idea that when she arrived at Cisco, one of the first things she hears is about this open door policy. This idea that we want to hear from employees, we want to get better, we want the company to get better. And she was only a few years into her role there when she tested it. She had her first child, went on maternity leave, got 9 weeks off, and basically came back and said, "That's not good enough." Like, I loved her line. I just took 40 weeks to birth this child, and now in 9 weeks you want me to kind of move on and move up. And what a great lesson that was too. But this idea that what are you gonna how do you make sure that you willing to hear from people when they've got a question like that? She took that chance. She goes to see the chief HR officer and ultimately works with the HR team to arrange a new strategy around parents that wasn't just her, I'm sure, but the entire concept now allowed when she had her fourth child, she got 21 weeks off. So what a gift to have stated values that aren't just stated but lived, right? And if you're going to have if you're going to say we have an open door policy, be ready for people to walk through the door. Powerful. But my third one, oh my gosh, and this one's so granular, and I'm going to do it today. Like this one's going on my list of things to work on. She talked about being a big attitude, which is your choice. You get to choose your attitude every day, right? And gratitude person. But to activate on that gratitude, she talked about about how she has a sticky note on her computer that reminds her that every week she needs to do three reach outs to someone in her universe saying thank you for what you did to help us advance this last week. Doesn't get more granular, doesn't get more, you could argue easy, but also one of those things that They really stood out. Um, I am, I feel momentum today. I love the way she mentioned that word so many times. I feel momentum today, because, I'm better. I'm better because Sophie poured into me, and I hope you are too. I appreciate you.